So, welcome to part 2 of this YouTube with my mum. So today we're going to be answering a very series of questions that I've had through, because I know going through a chronic illness as a teen was far from ideal, but also I know the battles of you having to deal with a very emotional teenager going through a chronic illness was far from ideal. And I work with a lot of teens, I work with a lot of mums as well, so I thought it'd be quite insightful. So firstly, I think this is quite a nice one as well to start on, is someone asked me, my mum gets sad that she made me like this genetically. What would you say to that?
I can really identify with that. I think I felt really guilty that somehow I'd imparted this horrible part of me, because I've got chronic illnesses, but I didn't get ill till I was much older, until I was in my 40s. But you got ill when you were 13, and I felt like it was awful and somehow my fault. So I think I can really identify with that. Obviously it wasn't, but at the time you just feel as a mum very guilty.
Yeah, and I think it's really difficult going through that for anyone. I think when of course we were always so close and going to all the different doctor's appointments together, we were in all of it together, weren't we, all through the ups and the downs. And I know so many people do feel really guilty, but it's nothing that we can do. You didn't have any sign of any illness until I was very little. So it can be no one's fault. And I think I'll open up as well. It's something that I've spoken to you about as well, about whether I want kids in the future. It's something that now I've been through, and it's like something that I've been debating as to whether I would want to put someone through that. But at the same time, I know I don't regret having a chronic illness. I mean, it's never been easy, and it's something that I've said so many times on my YouTube, on my socials and stuff as well, but it shaped me to who I am today. And I think you can, my life would have been so different if it wasn't for my chronic illness. So I think in many ways it has been the best thing that ever happened to me, because I think I would have hated uni. It's like all of those little things, isn't it, growing up, like when we were opting for uni, when we were looking at all of that. And then with chronic illness, it changed absolutely everything. And suddenly I ended up dropping out of school at 18, and all of these.
Really liked school
I
anyway.
absolutely hated school. The thought of having to go to further education, which was just this elongated version of school, sounded like absolute hell to me. And at the time, of course, everyone's kind of pushed. You go to school, you go to uni, and then you find a job. And that was like, for me, I just don't think that would have suited me. So in many ways, I think my teenage years were some of the hardest years of my life, which we're going to get into in a little bit more detail in a bit. But at the same time, I grew so much through them that off the back of them, it completely shaped who I am.
I think you're right, and I think you've always got on better with older people and adults, and I think you really found it hard at school. You almost got better with most of the teachers than your sort of peers. And I just think I think coming out of school was a gift for you in a way, although at the time we both felt it was horrendous. But actually I can remember when you did go, we did that wonderful, we were doing a shoot with Joanna Lumley in London. Yeah. And one of the first things you came up to London with me to do it.
Yeah, and to come and help you with.
And that was amazing. Yeah. That was such amazing. We had such an amazing, and we ended up going around the Houses of Parliament together, and just on the spur of the moment, we did things like that actually were real gifts. Although it was a horrible time for you, and a horrible time for me, but we did have some amazing, wonderful experiences in that as well, which you tend to forget.
I think it's so easy to focus on all the negatives, but I remember all of the Space NK shopping as well. And I'd have a really bad day at school, and that was my love of skincare began at a very early age. It was a very expensive habit that I've definitely taken on as I've continued to grow up as well. And we used to go and spend lots of time just shopping, and because I did struggle with a lot of friendships and stuff through school, you were one of my closest friends as growing up, and we had a lot of special moments together through all of the makeup shopping and trips to London, weekends away, didn't we, as my health started to improve. So it's it's hard to detach yourself, just bringing it back to the question, it's hard to detach yourself from feeling guilty, because I think it's natural to feel guilty. Anyone would. However, it's not anyone's fault. It's just the genetic lottery. It is literally just the genetic lottery. And it's coming back to what is within your control, what is out of your control. Firstly, that guilt, it's not going to serve anyone. And holding on to that guilt will not help your parent move forwards. It's also going to probably have a negative impact on the daughter as well, because if she's feeling always guilty, she's going to feel guilty and like a burden. And again, it's just trying to remove the guilt from that situation is going to be really important, and instead just work together, tackle it head on. Laugh through the highs, laugh through some of the shit situations. I mean, we have had some entertaining trips in hospital and interesting surgeries.
And I've actually pull you out of a door before you hit the doctor a few times, Rosie.
Yes, that was. Have almost wanted to kill a couple of doctors in my time. And I think we're going to some of the, at the age of 14, telling exercise physiologists to piss off, essentially. It was quite one of the moments. But yeah, it's just trying to embrace it together and just work together as a team. And being guilty doesn't fit into that equation. So it is what it is at the end of the day. It's an awful situation to be in, and no one should be in it. But it is what it is, and all you can do is your best on any given day. Right, next question. So quickly, do I still meet the diagnostic criteria for POTS? No, I don't. I don't remember the last time I probably would have hit that criteria. My tilt table test though, back in whenever it was, many years ago, that was a very high POTS score, wasn't it, when I actually had that done. But no, I don't meet the diagnostic criteria for POTS. I barely even noticed any things with my heart rate at all these days. And I've had a number of clients who have actually retested. They've been put for another tilt table test and they've no longer met the criteria for POTS, which in their situation was actually quite a frustrating one for some of them, because they needed that to be able to see a certain doctor. And then we'd got them to a point there where their health was so good that the doctor wouldn't see them because they're like, well, you don't have POTS. So yeah. Anyway, so other questions. So how would you deal with a chronic illness when you don't have a supportive family?
Gosh, I think that's a really hard one, because I think it is so hard. I think it's such a hard thing, especially if you're a teenager, if you haven't got that support. I mean, teenagers need a lot of support anyway. And so if you throw in a chronic illness into the mix on top of hormones and everything else and friendship issues, I think it's really, really hard. And I think you really need to find some support, whether it's a teacher, a friend, or an older friend, or someone else in the family.
Yeah, it doesn't have to, you can make your own family. I think, family doesn't have to be blood. If your blood relatives don't get it, find people, whether it's in a positive, supportive community, who have chronic illnesses and stuff as well, or find your people. Your people aren't always going to be your family. I mean, I've been extremely blessed with mine, because I have no idea how I would have got through it without you, although we did almost want to kill each other at points as well. But it's finding your people and finding your family, and they don't have to be your blood family. It's connecting people and having people who will have your back, who will also be honest with you, because it's so easy when you are in that negative headspace and you are struggling so much with a chronic illness to constantly be reaffirming how terrible it is and how bad it is. And if you're in a circle with people who are all doing the same, you're never going to be able to grow out of that circle. So it's having people who are willing to call you out on it, who will listen to you rant and then will push you to take the next productive step. And those are the people that you need to find.
Absolutely. And I also think it's hard if somebody actually then... some people, I mean, I can remember when I got chronically ill, some of my friends dropped me, and that was the end of my friendship with them. No explanation whatsoever. And I think, I think it's that shifting, when you get a chronic illness, it's a shifting friendships and finding your true friends who will support you as you've said, but it's like some of them won't support you and you just have to think, okay, I need to move on from them.
And I think the more I've grown up as well, though, I've realised is that's a blessing, because life's too short to have friends who don't have your back, friends who won't support you, who won't, if they don't want anything to do with your chronic illness, if they're not willing to adapt, if they're not willing to support you, then, what's the point in having them in your life? So I think as I've grown up, it's really made me realise, like, if, it works both ways. I will go above and beyond. Any of my friends will know that I will drop everything for my friends if someone needs me. And it's having people who will do the same and who have that support and respect and the boundaries. And, if people don't have that, you'll always have friends who, you can go out and have a nice time with. You can do that with almost anyone. But it's having those true friends in your inner circle that truly will get it, will support it. And if you say, like, look, I'm not feeling good today, again, they'll come round and they'll feel crap with you, or, they'll just FaceTime you. Or
I can remember people coming in when I was bedridden for 3 months. I can remember people coming and having a takeaway on my bed. So it's like there are ways of being sociable without, and people.
Right people will make the adaptations. So how to handle going from playing sports to nothing as a teen girl with dysautonomia. Well, that one, you can certainly relate to that one. So yeah, when I was 13 and I was literally playing hockey like 9 times a week. I was doing double, triple days. I was playing for school, for the school team. I was playing for club, for multiple different teams under the club. I was making both women's leagues and the under 16s and under 14s at the time. And then I was also aiming for regionals. So I was just playing hockey like no tomorrow at that point. It was absolutely ridiculous, the amount of hockey I was doing. I don't know how you drove me round for all of it at this point. I didn't
have a social life apart from all the other hockey parents. That was it. That was my social life.
I do remember you drinking on the side of the pitches occasionally.
I think we needed it sometimes.
So that battle is extremely challenging, but recognizing that it is temporary and it doesn't always need to be that way, I think is what's really important as well. Is just because that is how it is right now, that isn't the be all and end all. And like I said, going through school for me was some of the worst years of my life. I absolutely hated it. But I really grew from them, and it's recognizing that the best years are to come. You may find other things, and focusing on what you can still do, focusing on what you can still control, and use it rather than resenting the fact that you can't do that. Use that as motivation to want to put everything into improving your health and getting back to it, I think is really important.
I think people do get hung up on the idea that school is meant to be the best days of your life, and that is rubbish. I hated school as well. So, a lot of people find school tough, and and it's not the be all and end all. And it was devastating when you had to stop playing sport. I mean, you also had a pony. We had to get rid of the pony that you absolutely adored, and you'd saved up for years to buy this pony. And it was just like, the whole thing was, and you had built a lot of friends, because again, they were older friends with the hockey, and you had to let go of this whole life, two lifestyles really, and then you were just sitting on the sofa. It was, as a parent, it's hard to see as well, but you do move on, and look, you've found a different way of going into sport that suits you, which is your bodybuilding.
Exactly. And it's just that I fell in love with training and taking control of just looking after me. And that's where it all kind of stemmed from bodybuilding. It was actually going into the gym, doing it solely for me, for no one else, with no pressure to begin with, just to go and enjoy myself, to enjoy moving my body. And again, just you'll find other communities, you'll find other passions. I thought hockey for me was the be all and end all. I was aiming for England hockey. I thought that at the time was the be all and end all, but it's not. And I think it's also important, and something that I've grown up so much, even over the past year or two, is there's never just one thing. There's always multiple things. And just while it may feel like it is just that one thing right now, it won't always be like that. And the more you can just use it as motivation to get your health in order, to really focus on your nutrition, to motivate yourself, to push yourself with your steps, to build up your strength. Use it as motivation, but don't get stuck on the fact that you can't do it. Focus on everything that you can still do. Focus on how far you've come rather than how far you've still got to go, because it's so easy to constantly feel like you're missing out. And I completely get that. It is terrible, but the more you focus on that mentality, the more that's going to hold you in the past, and it's going to resent you from moving forwards.
I absolutely. And I think I can remember just sort of when I was ill and stuck in bed, and people used to say to me, why are you so cheerful? And I used to say, the thing that gets me through is remembering what things I do still have.
Yeah.
And focusing on them. And I had a bedroom that overlooked some trees and could see the birds. And I had my cats, obviously.
The chicks.
I'd Clive.
The chicks.
Yeah, Clive, Rosie's dad bringing your dad bringing me a present of 6 chicks in a box. That was great. And he decided to put them in the bedroom. And once they tweeted all night, I said, please remove these chickens.
They were very sweet, though.
They were very sweet. They adored you. They thought they were their mummy. But I did not need little tiny chicks pooing and running around my bedroom.
I don't know what you're saying. I think it was a great time. I think I was 5 or 6 at the time. I loved the chicks running around. How did we both feel when we got my diagnosis? So, well, the first one, to begin with, chronic fatigue.
Don't even get me started on that one. I think we were both, this is where you nearly hit the physio. And I think, well, no, it was first started off with the doctor in Bath, actually.
Oh, God, the doctor in Bath.
We referred to the chronic fatigue unit.
Yeah, the chronic fatigue unit in Bath.
She was horrible. And I just think it's like, don't do anything. Don't do anything.
It's like I'm lying in bed all day. I was like, what else do you expect me to do? I was like, it was awful. And then by the time we saw the next person as well, I'd actually built up a bit of, I was seeing a PT once a week, and I was starting to walk a little bit more. Okay. And then and that was keeping me, and we'll get on to the next question, it was about my mental health. That was keeping me going. That was keeping me sane. I needed to move. I had always been someone who had moved. And then the woman was just like, you need to stop moving. There's like, you're doing too much. That's why you're so ill. So you're doing too much. I was like, I wasn't doing anything, and I've managed to build it up to this point. And that was when
you walked out, and I actually followed you.
Yeah, I walked out. You followed me, and I remember distinctly this woman saying, "Well, I guess you won't want to be seeing me again, but if you do, you can phone up the office and you can see someone else." And that was the lasting impression 14-year-old me had on that poor woman.
You did traumatise a few doctors, mind you. I don't think I helped, because I used to go in and I would have researched everything, and I had this massive file like this. So I'd go in and I'd purposely intimidate the doctors. So I'd get all the files out, and then I'd pull out blood tests and go, right, I've made notes. I want you to tell me about what you think about this, what you think about that, what do you think about this. And but actually I do find they actually then didn't push me so much. They sort of treated us better, because they knew that that I wasn't going to walk away, and you weren't going to walk away. I was serious. I needed some answers, and you needed some answers. And I think we did try and intimidate people a bit, but by research and just asking a lot of questions.
And I think we've always been two people who are very in tune with our bodies. Like from a very young age, that I always knew when something was off. I always knew, and I always have. So when a doctor said something, and I mean, when we then got the PCOS diagnosis, and we were like, oh, finally, this is it. They put me on a horrible medication, did not end well, I'll put it like that. That made me flare for months.
But the second woman we saw about the PCOS, she said, and I nearly hit her at this point, she said, oh, don't worry about it. It just means you've got lots of eggs. Because it's like, Polly means lots. And I thought, at this point, I wanted to hit her and walk out, because I thought that is so oversimplifying. It's actually a very complex issue.
And the more, like, since then, of course, I've done so much research and I have so much more knowledge, and the amount of contraception they pushed me on, the amount of things that they pushed, like, I just cannot believe.
I think you tried every contraception.
They were just like, it's fine, we'll find the right pill, we'll find the right hormones for you and you'll be fine. Literally, it got to the stage where the doctor was like, well, we've run out of options. I was like, what do you mean I have run out of options? It was just, the whole thing was horrific. But it was when I finally got the POTS diagnosis, and I remember you walked in with a list of my symptoms, you put them on the desk, and he was, straight away, he said, you've got POTS. And it was from that moment, and then we did the tilt taper test and everything was confirmed. And it was like from there, then the EDS, the MCAS, everything kind of fell into place. And that was a couple of years down the line. That was by the time I was playing a little bit of hockey again. I was functioning a lot more than what I was initially when I was completely bedridden for 4 months. So it had come a long way by the time I got that diagnosis. And I remember he had said to me, when I was explaining everything that I was doing then, and he was like, had I have stopped exercising even more, and had I have listened to the doctor about not doing anything else, he said, you would have been in a wheelchair coming into my office right now.
I do remember that one, because
it
shocked me as well.
Always stuck in my head. And I think that's one of the things that just, for me, moving my body, it's like getting up, going for my morning walk each day. Moving my body gives me so much control, because it's empowering me over my health, over my symptoms, over my life. And I think it's just, that always echoes in my head, that it could have been so much worse. It could have continued to get so much worse. And I was in a very bad situation. My health was awful. I had a very, very severe case of POTS, had every possible symptom out there. Like, it was awful, but it could have, like,
and it's the fear that stops people as well. I mean, like, fear stopped me exercising. I was frightened of my body, that I was going to hurt it or make my exhaustion worse. And it's sort of learning to trust what you can do and building it up slowly in the right form of exercise. And all the, I mean, I've learned so much from you. I wish you'd been around when I was bedridden. All I did was I had to listen to myself. There was nothing in those days online really about it. And they still keep changing my diagnoses today, but I just have to manage my own stuff. And that's what happens to everybody, isn't it? But then there are people like you now who people can see, and that you've moved so much forward in your life, that you can achieve these things, even though you feel like, it's not, I can't do this. We all still have bad days, but then we have lots of good days.
Exactly. And I think it's not defining your life by your bad days, I think is so important, because it would be so easy. Like, there have been so many times in my life where I just remember saying to you that how am I going to have a future? How am I going to function? How am I going to live? How am I going to do X, Y, and Z? I thought my whole life was gone. But now here I am, absolutely thriving. So it's just recognizing that it isn't always going to be like that. And just being as resilient as possible. If you've got a close relationship with your parents, just working as a team through it all, I think, is so important.
Definitely.
And laugh your way through the shit situations. That is the best advice I can give. Laugh yourself through some of the embarrassment. It's even now we're messed at each other when I, like, my stomach's flared up, or some of our situations, and we're just like, you'll never guess what's just happened.
We have very similar situations where I didn't make it down to the doctor in time and had to come back and change my trousers. So I mean, and that happened just a few months ago. But then I rang the doctor and told him, well, I was going to be late, and he laughed as well. So I think
you just get beyond it. So that's the best advice I can give. Right, we'll leave that one there. But thank you so much for watching. If you'd like Mum back on the YouTube, and if you have any other questions, then please do drop them in the comments below. But hit like, subscribe, and we'll catch you all next time.